Good afternoon and welcome to the Board of Education's work session today. Our topics of discussion will be on the budget and the anti-racist system audit. At this time, I want to turn it over to Dr. Smith. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Evans, and all of the members of the board and all of the staff that are here to join this meeting today. Two obviously very critical issues to our school system's well-being that we're going to talk about today: the anti-racist system audit and the fiscal year 22 budget, and what the future of the budget will look like, not only in the coming year, but also for the rest of this year. And so we'll start today just by walking through some information that is so utterly important and has been important for decades in Montgomery County. Montgomery County Public Schools has been committed to educating students so that academic success is not predictable by race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, language proficiency, or disability. And we want to continue to strive to do that and to continue to diminish and eliminate the disparities that exist for all student populations in our school system. So many of our students have performed, learned, excelled at the highest levels of achievement in school achievement over the years. So many of them have, but not all. And we've had disparities in opportunities and resources, and we need to change that so every student can meet their full potential. We're committed to addressing these disparities in student outcomes by closing gaps in opportunity and achievement for each and every student in every single classroom and in all of our 208 schools. On a school system, we've focused on student learning, accountability, results, human capital, operational excellence, community partnerships and engagement, a strong academic program focused on improved teaching and learning, and those things all reflect the mission, vision, and core values of the system. If we're going to hold true to that mission, vision, and core values, that means that we're going to have to take an all means all approach all of the time, and that it's imperative that we take a critical look at our school system on a regular basis to see what we can strategically implement to enhance the work that's already been done, is being done, and that when we move forward, we're doing the right work. This is where the anti-racist system audit is so critical. It allows us to dive more deeply into the work, further analyze how institutional practices, policies, beliefs, interactions may be creating barriers to student success. What we learn will help us strategically take action to address them. And I just want to call everyone's attention to elementary accelerated math. I challenge each of the board members and each of the people listening to this board meeting to go back and look at the data that we've put out around the difference between 2015 and 2020 in fourth grade accelerated math and fifth grade accelerated math. We've made tremendous gains over those 5 years, and we have a tremendous long way to go for all children. That's a perfect example of what I was just saying to everyone from this sheet of paper in front of me. Barriers that are created, structures that are built, ways of doing business that actually interfere with children. And there's nowhere where this is more clear, I think, in our system than in elementary mathematics. The anti-racist audit directly aligns with system priorities. The work we've started and continue to do around the all-in equity and achievement framework is so critical. That framework provides the purpose, path, and plan to ensure success for our students. And the heart of it is the 5 questions that I've been asking since I arrived here. Are our students learning? Are they learning? Each and every student. Are they learning enough? And people say to me, rather glibly sometimes, what does enough mean to standard? I'll quote Miss Dixon. Are they reading at or above third grade reading level by the end of third grade? That's a clear standard that everyone understands. So are they learning? Are they learning enough? Next is critically important. How do we know? By individual student. by grade level, by student population, by the entire system, by school building? How do we know? And if not, why not? And most importantly, always, what are we going to do about it? The framework, the evidence of learning framework, the equity accountability model that talks about the impact of school, and the equitable access to resources is all foundational work. None of that work in and of itself changes what happens to a student in a classroom, but it does create a foundation and a structure, a framework whereby we can build beyond that. And the anti-racist audit is intended to help us continue building out that structure. When we look at the equity accountability model, we're looking at the impact of a school. Because when we just look at the average of all elementary schools, we don't really know what's happening in each elementary school or each middle school or each high school. The audit serves to complement this work by providing an opportunity to evaluate the current framework through the anti-racist lens. It'll take a deep dive into 6 areas, and they will allow us to examine not only our current framework, but how it fits into the overall work of the system. The data that's been researched and collected and examined through the all-in equity and achievement framework serves as qualitative data throughout the audit process. It also will help us provide the opportunity to analyze patterns and trends in our quantitative data. What does the data show us? I'll send you back to that elementary math. What does the data show us about our practices, our policies, our culture, our history, and our future? MCPS has been engaging in this work around race and equity and poverty for decades. The anti-racist system audit serves as the next layer of this work as we continue to strive for a school system that promotes excellence for every single student and ensures all students are learning and achieving at high levels. Now, I'm a 63-year-old white man, and I grew up, as many of you know, in a very, very poor, chaotic environment. I understand that I still had a real benefit because of my race. I get that. I didn't have many other benefits in life. Parents didn't even go to high school, let alone college. But race is a part of it. Poverty is a part of it. All of these things fit together. But the purpose of this goal, of this work, of this effort, the goal of this anti-racist system audit is so we can really look at ourselves and say, what else do we need to change? What do we need to maintain? What do we need to keep doing? What do we need to stop doing as individuals who are responsible for about 162,000 pre-K through 12th grade students, and they just keep coming each year. This year, we have about 10,500 kindergartners that are dependent on us. And our pre-K, our K, our 1, our 2, our 3, our 4th graders, they just keep coming. So that's the goal, that's the purpose, that's why we're doing the work, and it's just another step in the right direction on behalf of all of our students. I'm going to turn over to Dr. McKnight now so she can walk us through this presentation along with several of our staff members. And I just want to say thank you to all of our staff members and to Dr. McKnight for all the work you've done so far. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith, for that. I am going to ask MCPS TV to put the PowerPoint presentation up. And if we could move to slide number 2, which reflects what Dr. Smith just talked about, how we marry the audit to the next level of work that we're doing in the system to work we have been doing and working on for the past 2 years. Dr. Smith, I thank you for ending in that way because I think everything about this conversation is about the importance of us personalizing this work and thinking about who we are as human beings, what our perspective is, and most importantly, trying to match that to how do all these perspectives matter and why do they matter to our great diverse community of students in Montgomery County Public Schools, as well as our families. Next slide, please. Okay, so coming back to this audit was something Dr. Smith and I were excited to bring back to the board because we started this conversation back in July, which seems like just a few months back. But in between that time, we've spent a lot of time talking and reflecting with many of our families in MCPS, our staff members in MCPS, our students, and this has made us even more grounded in why this work is important, and most importantly, why it's important right now. And I say that because we had the board meeting on July 14th, and since then I've been asked the question, why now? Why conduct a system-wide anti-racist audit in the middle of a pandemic? And I find that very interesting. My response is to highlight that the pandemic has created an environment in which the urgency to identify and address racial disparities in our school system have even become more important, because through this pandemic, we've learned about the academic and emotional toll that has been taking on our students, who actually we already knew in MCPS already had disparities in their learning and in their experiences in our schools. And so now that we've experienced COVID-19, or we are experiencing COVID-19, the question becomes, how have those gaps widened? How do we now, while acknowledging that in the middle of a health pandemic, some of our students and families are more vulnerable in how they're impacted through this health pandemic, but now for those who were already in a place where they were needing to catch up and support and needed more support, academic and socially, emotionally, how have they now been impacted since we are not in person and we're having to think about ways to connect with them? It's one thing to think about how you connect with a student when you're in the classroom with them personally. And for some, that's easy. For some, that's difficult, depending on who the student is. Now the question is, how do we figure out that more complex piece even more when we can't look when the teacher and the student can't look one another in the eye, or can't have those things that remind us of compassion and understanding, and figuring out how to do that virtually. And so the first set of students who come to mind immediately are those who, again, we've been having conversations about in our model of evidence of learning, and saying, what more do we need to do for them? How are we working with our staff to make sure they can work with these students and their families to build upon what we've already started? So within our district, what we know is that our Black and Brown families are disproportionately affected by the virus in both contraction of it and illness and in deaths. And many of our families are experiencing economic hardship on top of that, which could result in loss of jobs. And all of that takes a toll on the children that we serve. All of it does. And while we can't see the toll that it takes on them right now, we are aware of it and know that our students in their homes and their families are navigating these circumstances. And furthermore, we must be cognizant not only of the isolation that this whole pandemic has taken on us and the toll that it's taken on families, but the racial injustices that have profoundly affected our youth and communities. And we're looking at that from a national level, a state level, even looking at local instances of injustices impacted by students of every ethnic and social background that we must continue to be aware of. Many of our young people have responded to these events, and the events go back to the summer and even beyond that, in fear and rage and confusion. And for our students of color, for many of them, it's about experiencing trauma all over again. And I often wonder, what does that trauma feel like when you actually don't have a school building to go to and look your peers in the eye, go to the adult and say, I'm really trying to process this. And so we're having many things in place to help support that. But I continue to say, it is about us learning from every experience that we have as a community in Montgomery County and working on making a commitment to build a better community through the lens of support and unity. And that's what this anti-racist audit is all about. Looking at our systems of support, figuring out who they're working for, who are they not working for, and who they're working for, furthering that support to be meaningful for those students. Who the systems of support are not working for, identifying what those systems are, and really taking a hard look at them and say, what do we need to do differently? And this is definitely work that we all have to become very united on, because this is a community ownership piece. I mean, this is work that we all have to own and contribute to. So in essence, we're experiencing a dual pandemic is exactly what I'll call it. Coronavirus and incidents of racial injustices, which have created a challenge for school systems everywhere. And not only in figuring out how to safely reopen schools in an ever-evolving landscape that we all have to continue to navigate, but also how to identify and interrupt racist beliefs, interactions, practices, and policies that we expand and unleash the potential to academically and socially, emotionally support every student that we serve. And that is at the crux of what we have to continue to do. And whether we were experiencing a pandemic or not, I think as leaders in the system, we always know it's good practice to evaluate our practices, our policies, to figure out who is it working for and who it's not. And so I look forward to us learning more about ourselves and how we lead in MCPS to address these very things. I'm reminded by a quote from James Baldwin, an American novelist and playwright, essayist, poet. And this is what he said that I've often reflected on in times like now. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And I feel like this quote really embodies the heart and purpose of the anti-racist system audit. The work around race and equity are not new initiatives in MCPS. Recently, we saw a video that goes back decades in terms of why MCPS needed to have this conversation and what has led us to having the backbones of having a focus around race and equity in the system for as long as we've had it. But the purpose of this audit is to evaluate our work as a system currently. Our goal is not to identify the gains and progress more specifically, but to identify and address barriers that exist that may prevent every student from reaching their full potential so that we can strategically take action and be able to better serve our community of everyone in MCPS. And so I continue to reflect on that question that I've been asked. Why now? And I ask, if not now, then when would we do it? It's imperative that we commit ourselves to the living mission and vision and core purpose of MCPS. Our vision is that we inspire learning by providing the greatest public education to each and every student. Our mission is that every student will have the academic, creative, problem solving, and social emotional skills to be successful in college and career. And our core purpose is to prepare all students to thrive in their future. And conducting this audit within our system is now an opportunity for us to face the barriers. And this is being and what's a reality for all of our students within MCPS. And as a result of that, being able to take action to promote excellence for all and ensure that learning and achieving at high levels is our expectation for every single student. And so I'll say that as a Black woman and as a deputy superintendent, I've had many experiences that have made this important to me. I was once that student who had to sit and question, are there expectations for me? And how do I rise to them? Or how do I do just what's requested of me? And I now have an 8-year-old son who I get to look through the lens of in terms of how he's being served in his education and have that same question. And so it all becomes very personal, but I will say what makes me excited about being a Black woman and being a deputy superintendent in Montgomery County Public Schools right now is that I know we have the conditions, the people, and the leadership to do that. And so that is what excites me about our work. Is it going to be tough? Yes. Are having conversations about how we can do better as a community and support our neighbors, even if they look different than us, have different advantages or disadvantages? Yes, those are difficult conversations to have. But I know those are conversations that we can do in the system because I've been a person in the system for a long period of time who have had leaders model that commitment. And so with that said, I am now going to introduce the 3 presenters today who will talk in more depth about the framework of the audit and where we are in the process. Ms. Stephanie Sharon, the Executive Director of the Office of the Deputy Superintendent, Mr. Troy Body, the Director of Equity Initiatives Unit, and Mr. John Landsman, the Coordinator of the Study Circles Program in the Equity Initiatives Unit. Sharon, I'll turn it over to you at this time.
Thank you. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I just want to thank the members of the Board of Education, Dr. McKnight and Dr. Smith. As a white female educator and MCPS parent of a 3rd grader, I had the opportunity to serve MCPS for 20 years in a variety of capacities. And I have witnessed firsthand the racial disparities that have existed across our system. And I've also witnessed the impact that national, state, and local events have had on our students of color, both academically and emotionally. I believe this is the time for me and for other white parents and educators like me to sit up, take notice, listen to our communities, talk to our children, and demonstrate anti-racist actions. This is not a time to be dismissive, but instead it's time for us to reach out, support in every way possible, and take meaningful action. It's my responsibility to take action to build a better future, not only for my own child, but for all children in MCPS. As a parent and educator, I can help dismantle systemic racism. The anti-racist system audit will benefit not only our children of color, but allow all of our staff, students, and community the opportunity to actively support anti-racism for the betterment of everyone. As part of the audit process, we worked to engage over 160 stakeholders in conversations around what they want to see as a result of the audit and how they would like to engage in the process. We engaged a diverse group of individuals in order to assist us in framing our work. And this collaborative approach is going to continue to be vital as we conduct the audit and create and implement an action plan to ensure that we are going to be transparent throughout this process, as well as incorporate the voice of our stakeholders in our community. For this video that you are about to watch, we asked participants to communicate what they thought, why they thought an anti-racist audit was necessary, and what their hopes were for the outcomes of both the audit and MCPS as a whole. The video you're about to see provides you perspective from the voices of just a few of the stakeholders that we engaged. You can play the video.
I think the audit is important to give MCPS a baseline of what's happening in the schools.
We need this to happen so that we can share our experiences and help ensure that MCPS is an inclusive, anti-racist school district.
It's necessary for us to understand how this is impacting our own students and families. Students can't learn unless we start with this.
A lot of students either aren't aware of the issues occurring or they don't know how to address them. So I think that the audit will definitely be a great start to that.
There is always more to be done in terms of being anti-racist and being strict and making sure that we are pushing an anti-racist agenda and notion to make sure and make it clear that racism has no place in MCPS.
Anybody that's delivering such crucial service to the county needs to be constantly examining themselves, their practices, and how what they're delivering are benefiting the broad community.
This audit is calling MCPS to be vulnerable and really name where we have fallen short, where we have supported systems of oppression, or where our systems are racist. But the benefit to naming and being vulnerable is that we are then a leader in the nation in that way. And it also, that's the only way we can change.
I want to just see change happen. I think a lot of what occurs now is just a lot of talk sometimes about what we want to get done, whether that's just through students talking about what they want to see done or teachers. So I really do feel like if we do have a conversation like this, there can be actual change implemented.
If we're going to do the audit and not do anything with the results, with the data, we have failed. So we need to do the audit, understand the results, and then use that data to improve and set policies going forward.
I definitely would like to see changes in the Montgomery County curriculum, especially in terms of like history. I would like to see it more inclusive in terms of different races and religions and ethnicities, everything.
Just creating those integrated environments is something that I think is really important. Just making sure that students are able to attend classes with people of different backgrounds from them. It definitely does add to your educational experience.
Schools have always seemed to me a microcosm of society. And so in order to have systemic change and to be disruptors of structural racism, you need to make sure that this work is at the forefront and that it never goes away and that we keep focused on it.
The MCPS needs to stay at the forefront if they want to be considered one of the school systems that's truly closing the gap and making a difference for every kid.
I want to be able to say that not only was I a part of, but my child was a product of a school system where he was valued, his culture was valued, administrators were passionate, our school board followed up. I want to ensure that every student, that every parent, that every teacher, everyone feels valued, and that we work together to ensure that our children will be the future leaders and we will be the example of what it means to be an equitable, proficient school system.
So good afternoon. I'm Troy Body, and I'm the Director of Equity Initiatives. It is so good to be talking with you all, the board today, on my favorite topic, which is equity. And so as an African-American male, as a second generation principal and central service administrator in Montgomery County Public Schools, it is my belief I've seen and heard stories of what schooling was like for people of color prior to desegregation, and was a beneficiary of that hard work of many people throughout the years to create a level playing field. But our work continues. And so it is with my pleasure, and it's also my belief that if no other system can do it, Montgomery County Public Schools can be this change that leads everyone else. And so it's my great privilege to just walk you through a quick history of our journey through equity in MCPS. Now, there's lots of work that was done prior to 1990, but we're going to start there with the study that was done called the Gordon Report. And this study was a deep study that examined those gaps, the achievement gaps between African Americans and white students. This work led to the Success for Every Student plan, which was grounded on the belief that every student should be provided a world-class education. So our work continued and our lens changed, and we added on the idea of looking at students who live in poverty. And so we had an increase of students receiving free and reduced meals in the county. And so we put our focus on understanding and supporting students living in poverty. It was also at this time that a coordinator for diversity was first hired for the system to really help the system build their capacity around understanding and appreciating diversity. Which moves us into 2003, when we really began talking about diversity. And so diversity is really developing that deep appreciation for the differences around you. And so that was quite an appropriate place to begin, as our system grew more diverse in those years. So in 2005, the system really focused in on, poverty is an issue, but the persistent gaps in student achievement were racial. And so the racial achievement gap became the focus of the system's work. Equity calls for each of us to give students and adults what they need in order to be successful, but understanding that everybody doesn't need the same thing. So addressing racial predictability was the lens through which the work of the system was aligned. We focused on rigor for every student. We developed the 7 keys for college and career success, which provided a pathway for every student to be college and career ready. The Equity Unit and Study Circles programs were created to support professional learning and dialogues to address racial inequities. As we continue along the timeline, we added social justice as a lens to our work. And so social justice calls us to attend to the systems that benefit some, but not all. This work was grounded in Gloria Ladson's Billing seminal work, focused on educational debt and how this debt produced a lack of access and opportunities for students of color. The impact for the system and student learning during these times were the building of our Future Together framework. We also adopted equity as a core value of the system. We examined our magnet programs. We built the work around equity into our school improvement process, and the Equity and Excellence educational program was launched. This program creates opportunities for staff to take a deep dive into leading for equity. In 2017, cultural proficiency became part of our conversation. And cultural proficiency focuses on how we appropriately respond to difference. The impact on teaching and learning was the equity and accountability framework, which asked our essential questions. Are our students learning? Are they learning enough? How do we know? If not, why not? And what are we going to do about it? And so these questions allowed us to work and strive to meet the needs of every student in MCPS so that we can support them in reaching their academic potential and meet their social and emotional needs. During this time, the system also implemented Be Well 365 with a focus on students' social emotional well-being, which is the foundation for all academic success. So here we are in 2020, and we're going to add the layer of anti-racism to our lens, which pulls together all of our work over the years to address systematic barriers that create, again, opportunities for some, but for not all students. So we're going to pause here. We got a lot of good information. We had a nice video that shared what some of our stakeholders think about this work. So next slide. I'm going to hand the mic over to Ms. Evans. So I want you to engage the board in a reflection on the presentation thus far. And you can use these 3 reflection questions. Mirrors, what are you thinking? Windows, I'm wondering, and sliding doors. This is an opportunity for us too. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, all that we've heard so far. And I will start with Dr. Daka. And you heard Dr. Body talk about using the 3 reflections. Like, so what are you thinking about what you heard so far, or are you wondering anything? Doctor.
Well, I'm thinking that, and I know Mr. Body mentioned that the reflection on racism and poverty and started much earlier in the 70s. And we had a human relations department which was disbanded, and I thought it was a bad idea because we were having a growing number of kids coming from different ethnicities. But now we have the diversity unit, which is really excellent, and we really do need that. And the work they put out is very wonderful, very topical, and awfully helpful to us. Now, the opportunity for us, and I know you're tired of hearing this, but the kids were lovely on that video. But I doubt if any of those were suspended people or had a below a 2.0 average. And I think until we actually get to that point of understanding what exactly we need to do to help them, we're going over what some of the issues are that cause us to have this disproportionate amount of students being successful. Thank you.
Sure. And I recognize I call you Dr. Body because I'm speaking it into existence that, before you get done. So just know I do know that
I'll take it.
Yeah. Okay. And so now I will go to Vice President Wolf.
I heard part of this presentation the other night at Farquhar, and the question came up then, and I have to say I am still kind of wondering. I'm trying to wrap my head around exactly what is going to be different, because we've had equity, we've had social justice, we had poverty, we had cultural proficiency, and all of that is a part of the anti-racist audit. So I want you to help me understand and help the people out there understand, because this was a bigger question that came up the other night. What is really going to be different as a result of this? That's it for me.
Well, I would like to take the first shot at that. I think this is an opportunity to pull everything together and really look at the integration of all of the work we do. And I am particularly interested in one aspect of it, and that is I'm interested in all the aspects, but one of them I think is an area that we have to keep really working on, and that is how do we create within our school culture the attitude and mindset of adults that when they see a system that isn't working, that they begin to ask the question, how do we change this system? And I'll push you back. I sent the board members all a bunch of data last week, and I'll just push you back to that data and looking at it. why weren't the questions asked is what I keep struggling with. And I'm hoping out of this audit we'll get a much stronger cadre of individuals in our system, in every office, in every school, across every kind of work, that asks those questions. Because I think we've got to ask the question, why is this the way it is? Is this the way it should be? And most importantly, what are we going to do about it? And so I think around adult learning is one of the places I think that is going to be most crucial in this. Back to Dr. Daka's point about the 1970s and the work that was done then.
And Dr. Smith, if I could just add on to what you said, and thank you so much, Ms. Wolf, for asking that question, because I think this is an opportunity for us to continue to break down a few, I would say, reflection questions as well. Like, for instance, we just, Dr. Smith, a year or two ago, commanded a study on practices to help us better look at how we're serving all of our students. And I mirror that practice to, we were able to see what were some of the factors that may be indicating some of our student performance. He also refers to this often that he took from one of our principals, Dr. Muggy, that said we have to move from percentages to names, from percentages to numbers.
To numbers.
To faces.
That's right.
The one part of that is, what's the story behind that face? Because even when we know who the faces are, if those faces are in those subgroups, like Dr. Daka brought up, the student who has been suspended, who may be just barely being eligible, but it's a student who's suspended. The student who then may be suspended, who may be at a 3.0 or a 4.0, but can't have access to certain things. What is that student's story, and how do we take account for that, for the staff to understand biases that may exist in systems that they are aware of or unaware of? And so those qualitative accounts of stories, I think it's very different, because while we've spent much time looking at some of our data and looking at the qualitative impact of it, the qualitative piece, and I believe one of the gentlemen in the video actually elevated that when he said, we need to get an account and the story of why what's happening is happening in our system. And then the second part that I'll just reiterate on that is the evaluation of practices. So when you look at our journey, we have over years implemented different initiatives. And so we looked at our numbers in the aggregate and we identified groups that need to be addressed. And then we developed systems. When have we stopped and ever say, let's do an evaluation of those processes and practices? Because the processes and the practices is actually what allows us to be able to implement policy that's written well with fidelity. And it also allows us the opportunity to look at those practices to say, did this work in 1991? Did it work in 2000? Is it still working in 2020? And then the third thing I'll leave us with that's different about this is engaging our community. And that's why you'll see that as one of the parts in the audit is critical. For a long time, we've had a system in which we within our bubble could really determine what all the things are that we need to do, because our community was very reflective in a lot of different ways. This is an opportunity for us to further engage our community stakeholders in a meaningful way to build what's next from this audit. Not just see it and react to it, but be a part of building it. And so I think a part of building it allows for there to be ownership beyond the borders of CESC and our schools, so that it comes out as a piece of work that our community owns and understands and have had a chance to walk from point A to point B. I'm sorry, Ms. Wolf, I know that was a long response, but I really wanted to get the essence of all of those pieces that I think do stand out, that's very different about the advantages we get when we stop and pause and look at where we were and where we are now and where we need to go moving forward with many others around us to support that.
I just want to thank you. I heard your discussion about the ownership part, and that resonates with me. But I still think that relationships and expectations are key. And for some reason, we haven't been able to adjust the expectations of the sort of masses here and what the students can do, get some sort of matchup. So I'm just going to say that I'm hopeful, and I'll sort of wait and see. Thank you.
Thank you. And next I'll go to Mr. Asante.
Yeah, so during this entire presentation, I think I was thinking about my own experiences as a minority student within the school system. I think it's great to see the work that's being put in. And I think this really is an opportunity for us to engage more than just our students and our teachers, but our whole community as well. I feel like a lot of the inequities and a lot of the racism within our school buildings start from home life, start within the community, and are perpetuated outside of the classroom. So I really hope to see that. I really hope that we take that into consideration and take those provisions to ensure that we're engaging everyone across our county, because I think that's where change really starts. And personally, I was wondering how this would be different from, the past initiatives that we've had, but you guys just explained that well. And I'm hoping to see that this will result in a lot of change. And I was also happy to see all of the students you included in the video, because these students are the ones who deal with a lot of these problems on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. I'll go to Mrs. Mondrowski and then Ms. Silvestre.
Thank you. Yeah. I want to say, first and foremost, thank you for the presentation. I do really appreciate the work that we're doing in taking a look at this issue. It's critical work for all of our students to feel included and engaged and accepted to be successful. I don't have much to add because my questions, my comments were, I completely agree with Dr. Daka. I would like to make sure that we are asking the right people the right questions. And then also the fact that, the one woman in the video mentioned implementation, what we do with this. And to me, that's, I'm always saying, this is great, but what are we going to do with it? So the implementation of how we make this affect change is going to be very, very important. And I'm really hopeful that we can do something with this. So thank you all for your work.
Thank you. Ms. Silvestre.
Thank you so much. I'm fully supportive of the work. I have to admit that I'm having a hard time grasping the full scope and implementation. So maybe I'm getting too far ahead of myself. But again, fully supportive of the work. One of the things that comes to mind is in Strategic Planning Committee, we looked at the positive effects of our pre-K program. And we looked at the students that have benefited from MCPS pre-K and watched that cohort's data year after year. And it's excellent data, except in the upper elementary grades for African American children. So in that meeting, I asked the question, what's going on here? I got a wide variety of responses from we're still figuring it out to systemic bias. So given that we know that data, why haven't we acted on it? And what's going to be different? I guess what I heard you say, Dr. McKnight, is that as a part of this process, we're all buying into why that is happening. And maybe the answer is that it hasn't been addressed systematically because it's kind of like you're responsible, and nobody's responsible. So that's the example that comes to mind, something that has baffled me. And I remember sitting next to you, Dr. McKnight, at one of our meetings when we were still in person. And I said, Dr. McKnight, what are we doing to be an anti-racist school system? And we talked a little bit about bias and bias training. But anyway, all that to say is that I think we do need to look at the system in an anti-bias lens. But hopefully with the process of getting teachers and staff and community members and students involved, we will be more courageous in taking on the work that needs to happen in order to tackle some of these issues and focus on the things that are going to make the biggest impact on academic achievement. There's the universe to fix, but ultimately there's children in 5th, 8th, and 11th grade that are not meeting the evidence of learning standard. And so let's start there. Thank you.
Ms. Evans, if I could respond, I'd like to respond.
You may.
So, first of all, I agree with you. There's a universe to fix, and we can take very, very good care of our students. And if they walk out the door with a diploma, but no skills, no knowledge, no ability to maneuver throughout our community and our state and our nation, then we haven't really helped them very much at all. So I completely agree. Let's go back, though, to your question, which I think is the perfect question, Ms. Silvestre, around this. And when I was making the point in the introduction of this around the 4th grade accelerated math and the 5th grade accelerated math, as long as we use and work on it, and obviously in a school board meeting, we're going to talk about aggregates. But as long as we only use that aggregate and say that we're losing ground with our African-American students in the upper elementary grades, and we don't go back to each individual school, each individual 4th and 5th grade, not with a hammer to beat people with, but to say, this is unacceptable. How can we help you change this? We've got to say it's unacceptable, and we've got to say we're going to help you change it. We're not going to allow it to stay the same way. But that requires everyone to buy in, and it requires us not to allow it to exist. And that's what the purpose of the equity accountability model, the evidence of learning, all those things are, to provide that opportunity to go back, to go to a place and say, this is unacceptable. It's unacceptable and it must be changed. How are we going to change it? And that's really, we've done some of that over the last few years. We have a lot more of that to do in a much more systematic and methodical way as a school system. That's what has to happen.
Thank you. So now we'll go to Ms. Dixon and then Mrs. O'Neill.
So I have a lot of thoughts about this. And one of them, I just texted our chief of staff about whether or not we actually have a policy that, bans racist symbols like, the Confederate flag and, swastikas and other things of that nature. And it seems that, we don't have anything specifically that says that, just that students should act. Let me get it. Pull this up. In Regulation JFA-RA, the language states students have a responsibility to refrain from use of language that has the intent to harass, threaten, or intimidate. So, I think that would be something that we should obviously do as an anti-racist statement. But I'm thinking and, agree with Dr. Daka years ago. And actually, I earned the equivalent of a master's degree through a planned, I have a master's degree from accredited university, Loyola University in Baltimore, but earned the equivalent of a master's degree in the planned in-service program that we had in MCPS. And those courses very much spoke to this issue of learning about different cultures. And one of the ways that, I became a big student of the Holocaust was by taking a course in the Holocaust from Flora Singer, who one of our schools is named for. She was actually a Holocaust survivor. She taught that course along with Sue Chattel and Bob Hines. Sue was at Springbrook at the time, and Bob Hines was at Richard Montgomery. And certainly in college, one of the first courses that was offered at American University in African American history is a course that I took there as well. And it seems to me that this is really about a lot of education, that we need to have some required courses for students and also staff that look at specifically the contributions of African Americans, Latin Americans, Asian Americans, and I think, we need to also throw in LGBTQ and women and, students with disabilities as well. So I think that would be a good first step. The other thing that strikes me about all of this is that this all needs to be ongoing, because we've done these sorts of things in the past, but then we have a change in leadership at the top. And, it depends on who the superintendent is, if they're going to pick this up, or, who's on the board and what their interests may be, as well. And really just moving forward, that somehow we need to codify that this is something that, we are going to continue to do and require. I almost ran downstairs, but I figured, Miss Evans would call on me first, but she knew I'd have a lot to say, so she waited until the end. But to bring a textbook that actually, I guess Rich Wilson used to be the social studies supervisor. And a big push during that time was to get a textbook that looked at the contributions of African Americans, women, Latin Americans, and Asians to American history. And it still is, I think, a very, very good text. I know that we did purchase some when I was the principal at Paint Branch, and other schools may have it. I'm happy to share that with the equity unit if you haven't seen it, to tell you what the title is. But, it strikes me that it's not that we don't want to do. I just think that other things have come up as well. Once again, I think it's about leadership and, as I said, codifying all of this and putting it in there. But what I would do is I would have a required course for students and also for staff. And if you come to work in Montgomery County Public Schools, you have to take a course so that you know something about the culture and history of the students who are here. And also for our students as well. So I'm going to stop there for now, but let's get it done. And even though I'll be leaving, I'm happy to help with anything in this area. But I think it's really about what are we going to do to create those relationships that Ms. Wolf was talking about. So. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now we will go to Mrs. O'Neill.
Well, somewhat in response to Ms. Dixon, part of what should continue to live and be the driving force are core values, our mission and our vision, which should be the guiding principles that take us from one board to another, from one superintendent to the other. This has been ongoing work. When I began as a parent in MCPS, Paul Vance and the Success for Every Student was the strategic plan. It evolved through Jerry Wiest and through Josh Starr, and it now lives in Dr. Smith and this board with the all-in effort. And, but the underpinnings of all of that work are our mission, vision, and core values. But owning it and getting to so that everyone has that buy-in. I recently watched one of the most recent Nobel Prize winners, a woman at the University of California, Berkeley, speak. She won for jointly with another chemist. I think there have only been 4 women who have won in chemistry. And she said that when she was in high school, although it wasn't Montgomery County, that her counselor said, "So what do you want to do in life?" And she said, "Well, I want to be a research scientist." And the counselor said to her, "Well, girls don't do that." And she said, "Well, this girl does." And I don't, how we in education, not just here in Montgomery County, track that nut, whether it's about girls, whether it's about Latinos or African American or poor students, that is the essence of what we have to do so that we have high expectations for all of our students. But, I think that people live in the moment. And I think that this anti-research effort is important, although it's a variation really on our previous equity work and all. I know that there, and I'm going to be a devil's advocate about some in the community. Dr. McKnight, you said, why now? And some would say, well, why are you not talking about returning students to the buildings and returning to in-person learning when the disparities are only being exacerbated right now in the virtual learning environment? So I just, this is an effort that, we are committed to, and it is ongoing work. And we are, through the support of the Children's Opportunity Fund and the Black and Brown Coalition on the Learning Hubs, I think there are some who are probably watching this conversation and saying, why not talk about what you're doing to support student learning in this conversation?
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. Dr. Smith, I didn't know if you wanted to comment, but thank you, Ms. O'Neill, for raising that question. I think it presented an opportunity for us to just even sit in that for just a second, because we actually shouldn't see the conversation as 2 different topics. And many are asking that because that is how they, many see it. And so the students who are more susceptible, as I said earlier, to the virus, given the circumstances, those are the same students we're trying to keep safe. And for us to have a conversation about what are we going to do for those students who need to make up gaps even further, it has to go beyond anything that we've done before. Because if we had the answer figured out or the problem figured out and had the actual solution to it, then we would have we have closed some gaps or we have lessened some gaps, but we would be even further along. To now talk about how is it that you bring learning back to the forefront for those students who've had dual impact, I think requires a different conversation, because that's when it becomes optional about who is the adult working with those students. How does the adult at post-pandemic working with our students have to see that this is a student who's been impacted even in a different way? How do I reconnect with them? Because the way I reconnect with them may be very different. And how do I make sure I am astute to all of their learning needs, even more so than before? Because now there's a double impact. And there's no way we can do that without having conversations about who those students are, what their needs are, what their gaps in learning are, what their race may be, what their culture may be, because those are the very things that very well could have contributed to some of the gaps in the beginning in terms of how we work with them and how we plan and coordinate out their education. And so I thank you for raising that, because we actually can't do one without the other. And the conversation has to be one conversation. And I think the anti-racist audit will allow us to be even more intentional about what we're doing as a school system during pandemic and post-pandemic, to even become more astute to how we address the needs of all of our students, regardless of race, income, all of those other factors that oftentimes impact their experience. So I appreciate you raising that so that we could have a chance to just talk about how the two really are the same.
And so we'll hear from Dr. Daka one more time, and I think Ms. Dixon has her mic unmuted to comment.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to respond to some of this. This school system has always had leadership that was anti-racist and tried to have programs to make sure that the students do better. But I think there's a disconnect somewhere along the line with the people who meet the students day to day. And when you talked about people saying, well, why are you talking about this now? We should be talking about opening schools. Well, it's a little easier to talk about opening schools because we really don't want to talk about Black and brown children and farm children not doing well. It's a hard conversation. And I have to congratulate all the leadership, and especially now the leadership that is working on this. You're going right after it. And we have to continue to do that and to do more. And Ms. Dixon talked about courses that people should take. And in the early days, all the new teachers and all the old teachers had to take African American history and culture. We had a change. Yeah, she's nodding her head. She knows. They had a change in the board makeup. So they got rid of that, said they didn't have to do that. They'd have to do ethnic groups in American society, which isn't bad. It's really a good thing because it did cover all the groups that we were talking about. But after that, it was not required of anybody any longer. So they couldn't talk about some of the things that Ms. Dixon brought up, like swastikas and using bad words, pejorative words to talk about people. I mean, being specific about what should not be happening. So having the students take courses on that, I guess you all know that our course of study has those courses. And Michael Williams is teaching an ethnic course over at Kennedy, and you're all familiar with that. And they also have it for African Americans. I'm not sure about Hispanic culture. I know that I taught Hispanic culture, I taught African American culture, and ethnic groups in American society, and I was required to work with this. I was the coordinator for all of these courses. So, they're very dear to my heart, and I was sorry to see what happened because I thought since we were changing our populations, they were very, very necessary. Thank you.
Ms. Dixon.
So I'm going to put this right out there. And I think that, some people may not like it, but so you have to be living under a rock if you don't know what's going on in our country right now in terms of November 3rd and the election that's coming up. And, regardless of what you say about POTUS, I didn't vote for him. I've already voted. But, he really has put on display the big divide, the racial divide that exists in our country. And, it really is something that we as Americans need to work on and need to come together, as much as we can in terms of unity. But once again, it's really about understanding each other and understanding that because you may do something for one group doesn't necessarily take away anything from another group. And, so that's all on display. It's out there. And I don't know how much longer I can take past November 3rd. But, so this is the time to do something about it. And, I know that there is planning going on to open our schools in January. So I don't think anybody should be under any illusion that work is not taking place. But very frankly, we're not talking about this now because, we have to keep our kids safe. And I noted that all the candidates for the board in the paper today, you're all in the paper in case you don't know, just about opening schools? And, the answer was, which was common sense, till it is safe to do so. We don't want our kids, obviously, any harm to come to them or, to staff either. And so I just think that this is something that really in America, not just in Montgomery County Public Schools, but in America needs work. And, this the old idea of brotherhood and, being your brother's keeper, sisters too, I would say now. But that's really important. And, the American people are good people, but sometimes a lack of education or knowing about other people and, but I think we all have the same hopes and dreams and the same hopes and dreams for all of our children. And so this is work, I think, that's very, very important. And I'm glad to see, that we're going to focus on that. And I think it will make a difference. And just to say something else about this as well, because at one point, there used to be this view in Montgomery County that if you were an African-American administrator, you needed to be in a school that had predominantly African-American students. And I'm not sure I always believed that. And I cherish the time that I had as an administrator at Walter Johnson High School, which was predominantly white. But I thought what I was doing there as well was letting white people or white children see an African-American woman as a role model, that we can be role models for all children. And we did pretty well over there. I wasn't ready to be principal there, but when I left, there were parents telling the superintendent I should be the principal. I'd only been in AP like 3 years. So, these things are important, that anyone can be a role model for any child, regardless of who they are. But I think understanding and different groups and, what we bring to the table and, all of this. I could take up this whole meeting talking about this. So I'll stop now, but, it is the time to really do this and codify this and not let it drop. And that's going to be up to all of you all to make sure that happens. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm glad you won't use it the entire time, but it just goes to show this conversation is really important and that all of us are committed to this work. The board members are fully on board. I just want to say this goes really excellent with the equity and achievement framework. Glad we are doing this work. I heard a parent community coordinator or there was somebody that was a part of the video talking about how this audit was the betterment for everyone. So I do agree with that. And just as a board, I think many of my colleagues said everything that I agree with, but we'll have to continue to review our policies to make sure it reflects our commitment as well. So that's our role. And so we are saying that's what I'm saying that as I continue to be on the board, that's something that I definitely want to make sure that we do. And so with that, it is.
I just wanted to comment, I just felt it important to raise what is on some people's mind out in the community. I think this is very important work. And I think the events over the past, since the start of COVID and with the killing of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd have raised a spotlight on inequities and disparities that all of us have known have existed in spite of earlier efforts. And I hope that the findings will help guide our path in making changes with our students, but more importantly, with our employee groups.
Okay. So thank you. So this time I will turn it back over to Dr. Smith or Dr. McKnight to continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. So thank you, board members, for sharing your reflection with us. We appreciate that and have made note of many of the comments that were shared. This is going to be a journey that we're all moving through together. And I love the fact that we, get to have our systems of accountability in place just to make sure we're moving along and addressing all of the things that were raised in this discussion. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Sharon, who's going to talk about the framework and goals of the audit. And that may address some of the questions you may have had, Ms. Silvestri, earlier about the process. So Ms. Sharon, I'll turn it over to you at this time.
Thank you, Dr. McKnight. Can we bring the slide presentation back up? Okay, thank you. So in order to appropriately frame the audit, we have to first identify how, as a system, we're defining anti-racism within MCPS. And as you can see, what's highlighted there, that this is in draft form. This definition was drafted based on feedback from the senior leadership team. And the goal is to vet and refine this definition through a multi-stakeholder process. In addition, we want to continue to be examining this definition throughout our audit work so that we're continuing to reflect on ourselves and how we're defining and personalizing this work around anti-racism. So MCPS currently is defining anti-racism as a process where all members of the MCPS community actively identify and interrupt racist beliefs, interactions, practices, and policies so that we expand and unleash every student's academic and social emotional potential. So what does it mean to be anti-racist? So in order to be actively anti-racist, we need to engage in constant reflection of ourselves, our communities, our practices, and our interactions. We need to be aware, and I heard some of the board members speak to this, the historical context and the communities that we serve and in which we work and live. We need to identify inequities that exist in their context and continue that collaborative approach with staff, students, and community members to appropriately disrupt them. We need to disrupt the status quo to eliminate policies and practices that block access, opportunity, and equitable outcomes. And then we have to proactively develop new practices and policies that create access and opportunity and equitable educational and social emotional outcomes for all. Ibram Kendi, author of How to Be an Anti-Racist, stated that the only way to undo racism is to consistently identify and describe it and then dismantle it. It is with this lens that we're going to be conducting the anti-racist system audit, and it's how we plan on approaching the work and subsequent actions that the audit will yield. Next slide, please. So as a reminder, this graphic has been shared previously. This audit is going to take a deep dive into all parts of our system from an anti-racist lens in order to determine progress and identify barriers to all students thriving academically and socially emotionally. So we have 6 areas that we are going to be evaluating. As you can see, we have workforce diversity, work conditions, K through 12 equity curriculum review, the equity achievement framework progress, community relations and engagement, and the evaluation of school cultures. The audit is going to examine the beliefs, interactions, policies, and practices that both students and staff experience within MCPS. We know that although our goal as a system is always focused on student achievement and well-being, examining and addressing the experiences of our staff fundamentally impact the efficacy of our work with students and their families, which is another reason that this audit is unique. This is why it's addressing all parts of our system from a holistic approach, recognizing, and I think one of the board members mentioned this as well, that if we only address one area, that will only serve as a temporary Band-Aid instead of systemic and lasting change. So the idea is to really take a holistic approach and identify not just the areas and barriers within each of these areas, but the intersectionality between them so that we can see where these things overlap in our audit and in our system so we can be very strategic as we move forward. Next slide, please. So our goal, our fundamental goal in MCPS is to be an anti-racist school system. In our conversations, as I stated before, we engaged over 160 stakeholders. We asked them what they wanted to see as a result of this audit. And we then used that information to really focus and develop our goals. We want to create and foster an environment where all members of the MCPS community are free of negative experiences or outcomes based on race or ethnicity. In our ideal state, our staff and students will experience greater equity and inclusion, which will yield positive learning outcomes for students. Furthermore, our instruction will reflect and honor the diversity of our community, nation, and world, with a focus on developing positive relationships, ensuring an environment where students feel safe and can thrive emotionally and academically. And lastly, we want our system to be a place where the experiences that students have instill the confidence and skill set that they need for them to be prepared to make positive change in the world.
Okay, so next slide, please. And so I wanted to provide some updates around our stakeholder focus feedback groups, focus groups that we met with in the summer, in August. So we had 160 stakeholders who provided us with a great deal of information, and we had 8 different focus groups. So to prepare for this audit, the Equity Initiatives Unit and the executive directors in the Deputy Superintendent's Office held a series of focus groups, which included students, support staff, support professionals, teachers, school-based administrators, community members, and central office staff, along with administrators, school-based and central office. The team reached out to various community groups, student organizations, and union leaderships to identify participants. And the purpose of these focus groups was to see how each of the different members of the focus group would like to participate and what they would like to see as a result of the audit. So the team gathered these, had some great conversations. We gathered the feedback, we coded it, and identified the themes, which I'll share. Next slide. So we asked stakeholders about communications. And so these are 3 of the main things, things that they felt important: the ongoing communication with accessible language for everyone. They wanted to be informed throughout the process from system leaders about the progress of the work. Transparency in communication. Again, no secrets. What are we doing? How are we doing it? Where are we doing it? And also, students identify the communication should take place using social media, because that's where they get their information. So that was very insightful as we communicate to that particular stakeholder group. And they also wanted us to make sure that we were pulling in student leadership and providing opportunities for students to lead on this work. Next slide. So when asked about how stakeholders would like to engage in the audit process, stakeholders consistently wanted to have more clarity about the audit's goal. They also wanted to have authentic face-to-face opportunities, whether they're virtual or actually in physical space, to engage and share perspectives. Really wanted us to create safe spaces to engage with one another and engage in the process, because people wanted to feel as though they could speak their truths. They also identified infinity groups as one way to create these safe spaces, particularly when power dynamics could impede one speaking their truth. It was also important that the consultants reach out and engage with members of the marginalized community, so that we are hearing those voices that we don't always get into our spaces. Stakeholders also suggested that there be multiple formats and opportunities to engage in the anti-racism audit process. And also engaging in smaller groups was important to for folks to really want to engage in the process. Next slide. And so in terms of outcomes, people really wanted to see that they would see and hear all levels of our organization engaged in the work and the community, and make it really clear that we are actively engaging in this work toward anti-racism in our school system. They also wanted to know how we would continually build capacity and hold one another accountable for doing this work. So in summary, stakeholders wanted to have ongoing updates and communications about the anti-racism audit process, the goals. The stakeholders are also looking for various opportunities and formats to engage with the consultant that provide space for psychological safety to encourage truth-telling. Finally, the hope is that the audit would take a systematic approach that will require every member of the district to engage in personal knowledge building, application of this knowledge, and to be mutually accountable for dismantling practices, policies, and procedures that replicate racism. I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Landsman.
Next slide, please. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Landsman. I'm the coordinator of the Study Circles program in the Equity Initiatives Unit. I'm also the parent of 2 MCPS students, so I'm a consumer as well. I've spent the last 17 years engaging staff, students, and parents in honest dialogue about race, which has given me an unusual lens on race and racism for a white man. My colleagues have done a good job explaining the why and the how of the anti-racism audit. My role is to talk about the Anti-Racism Audit Advisory Committee. Several of you have asked how this will be different. One of the ways is how we engage the community on this committee. With most new initiatives in a system as large as MCPS, there are always questions and at times not a lot of trust. When the initiatives are around race, the questions and distrust multiply. The advisory committee is being designed to provide a process for honest and productive two-way communication. We are bringing together representatives from the MCPS community who reflect different experiences and perspectives. You can see a list of the different organizations that we're connecting with on this slide. We know that talking about race with people who reflect different experiences and views can be difficult. It's also true that our own racial experiences may impact how we view the data that comes out of the audit. For these reasons, the advisory committee will be organized and facilitated using some of the practices that we've learned in the Study Circles program to help the committee members develop the relationships and structures needed to have honest and productive conversations that will help inform the development, the implementation, and the analysis of the anti-racist audit. Mr. Badi will now go over the audit process.
Next slide, please. So again, our focus group started in August, and then we moved into September, where we actually wrote the audit, identified what we wanted a consultant to be able to provide for us. So we wanted to make sure that there were multiple opportunities for staff to engage in the product process and provide feedback and share their lived experiences. We wanted a consultant to be able to use the vast amounts of data that MCPS already has. We wanted to really have them analyze the data using a research-based equity, racial equity lens. Again, facilitating lots of different stakeholders to get that story behind the numbers. We wanted them to use quantitative and qualitative data to determine practices, policies, and procedures, to review our practices, policies, procedures, and make recommendations. We also wanted them to be able to synthesize our data so that, again, we can be able to tell our stories and have the ability to do some action planning based on the results. October, we pulled together a selection committee. We identified several consultants who provided us with information about their work. We pulled together central office staff, principals, teachers, community members, and students to review the proposals. And on October 27th, we're going to bring the name of the identified consultant to for the board approval on October 27th. So there's been a lot of work. It's very exciting to elevate this work once again, take it to the next level. We're doing all this to examine our practices, our structures, and procedures so that we can expand opportunities and unleash the potential of every student in Montgomery County Public Schools. It's about being additive and increasing the value of MCPS. And so when you ask what's going to be different, the answer is each of us. Each of us will have a new lens through which we look at our work, our students, our community, and continue our move toward excellence and equity. Thank you for your time, and thank you for engaging with us during our presentation. I am turning the mic over back to Ms. Evans.
Thank you, thank you. So I will ask board members by a show of hands, are there any comments or questions that you want to ask with the remaining part of the presentation that you have heard? And if not, I will let us go to the next portion of the agenda, but I do see Mrs. O'Neill's hand. I see your hand. I didn't forget him. I just want to make sure I didn't see anybody else, and I didn't. So go ahead, Mrs. O'Neill.
So I appreciate all the efforts that have gone forward up to this point. Can you tell me approximately what this is going to cost, and that when you bring us the ultimate recommendation, will you share with us who the other or what types of RFPs were also submitted? Mr. Body said there were several, and that's good. I'm happy that people want to work with this. I don't remember, maybe you have shared approximately the cost on this, and the parameters of the RFPs. We gave them a timeline. What sort of timeline did we lay out there?
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. I can let Mr. Body speak to any specifics, but I will give an overview of that. In terms of the cost, we actually had two areas going into this audit that we had set aside to really do some innovative work. And one was the innovation fund that we had talked about being a priority, in which we were going to provide an opportunity for schools to do really innovative work to reach their students who have been struggling students in their school. So since we are not traditionally doing that in this pandemic, we will still use it towards this audit. And as well as we've also set aside funds within our curriculum unit as well, because this was also work that was already taking place. And so those are the two funding spaces that we will be utilizing to fund the anti-racist audit. Interesting enough, in the process, had lots of people, I understand, from the team who were very interested. I think they had an interest session in which they had just engaged people from nationally who were just able to ask questions. One thing we found is, for systems to do this work to scale, like at the size that we are in MCPS, this is pretty innovative. Much of what we talked about in terms of our own practice, taking pieces of it is whatever, many other places have done. And so I think that's added to us getting folks who were very engaged in thinking about the scope of work. So we had two our RFPs that came, and they spanned it anywhere, I believe, from around, I don't want to quote the numbers off, but that is information we can bring back. I don't want to give the wrong number right now, but it is information we can talk about more specifically, because we are bringing this back in our future meeting to our consent items for approval for the board. And so it's at that time where we'll be able to share all of the information in terms of who applied for the RFPs and what the costs were, just so you'll have a scope of what the quality of work was that each application brought to us. Because I know our stakeholder group were really essential in helping to draft the work in the RFP to make sure it was reflective of what we wanted to accomplish as a system. So if that's okay, Ms. O'Neill, we can bring that back when we bring it back as a consent item.
Sure, that's fine. I mean, because I know it's on the agenda for the 27th. Since we were, having a discussion about the RFP, since there was a conversation, I thought I would just ask those questions now. So, you can be prepared on the 27th.
Thank you.
Well, Ms. Evans, I have the same question about cost as well. And, and I also wonder, there's no one in Montgomery County Public Schools who can do or lead this work. All right. So I just put that out there. You've got some good people that could probably do this work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, thank you to all the presenters for this great discussion today on our anti-racist system audit. Looking forward to continuing to hear more and for the work that's to come. And at this time, I will turn it back over to Dr. Smith so that we can go into the conversation around the budget.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. First of all, I'd like to apologize to the board for turning the agenda upside down today. I had it in my head that the anti-racist system audit was first, and I looked at the agenda and went right on with what was in my head instead of what I could read. So I apologize. Totally my fault. But we do want to talk about the fiscal year 22 budget for a little while. And certainly the board has an interest in sharing areas that are of priority to you as board members. And we can't really talk about the fiscal year 22 budget that begins next July 1st without talking about the fiscal year 21 budget and just where we are at this point. A lot of folks have contacted me through email or said to me, in community messages, they put it on social media and other ways. We must be saving a lot of money during fiscal year 21. And I just want to remove that belief right now. We've actually spent just as much money as we would have had schools been in brick and mortar. And certainly Ms. O'Neill's point earlier about members of our community wondering when students will be back in school is a very good one. Actually, during this conversation, I received an email from a member of the community who said, "You must tell us right now." And as several people have pointed out, we don't know the answer to that, but it doesn't mean we're not working on it every day and all the time, and that we won't be having conversations next week and the week after, because the board resolution says that we will come back to the board before the beginning of second marking period to talk about what it might look like to bring students back into school at the beginning of second semester, and what it might look like. We've been having conversations around what it might look like if at some point between now and February 1st, what it might look like to have small groups of students come back in. But all of those things are, certainly in question right now, and we'll continue to work on that and strive for it. But I say all of that to point out we are spending the FY21 budget. Our budget is about 91.5% employee costs. So our employees are with us, and we're spending that amount of money. The areas of small savings would be in bus fuel and a little bit in utilities, although our schools are being used to an extent with the distribution of materials, the distribution of meals. We have the county system, the CUPF, the after-school system of the county government runs around childcare, using about a third of the schools in the system. And so I want to make it clear to our community, we don't run the childcare programs. Those are run through the county government and by third-party providers. And that system was that way before COVID-19, and it continues now. But the point is they are being used. So Whether there are 1,000 students in the school building or 200 students in the school building, we still have the lights on and the HVAC systems running and all those things happening. So when we think about this question of the FY21 budget, it is costing all of the money and more through the various grants we've received from the federal and state government to continue to operate the school system as it is, as we strive to move into a place where we can bring students back into physical spaces when that is a responsible action to do, given the health metrics that have been put out. And if we watch the health metrics every day, unfortunately, recently, the number of cases per 100,000 residents has gone up in Montgomery County over the past couple of weeks. And I watch them every single day. So all of those things fit together in this very complex situation. When we think about the FY22 budget, two areas of concern, immediate concern: the county government called for some savings plans this year, and that's going to be difficult to do. And then the state government, there's been a lot of conversation about what the General Assembly will have to do when they come back into session the second Wednesday of January of 21, around the state budget and balancing that budget because of the potential shortfalls in revenue. And the revenues are just coming in now in the fall, and because the deadline for filing of taxes was delayed from April 15th until July 15th, then all of that's been slowed down a little bit. And we know that people file for extensions, and there are always those conversations back and forth about the effect on the tax revenues around that issue. But the bottom line is that we will know a lot in the next 6 or 8 weeks about what the county revenue looks like and the state revenue. And that could have an impact not only on the FY22 budget, but it could also have an impact on this current budget that we're in the middle of right now. And then finally, over the last 2 years, last year and this year, we received money out of the blueprint for Maryland education, and that money will be in question. We have just under $30 million that's built into our budget. It's primarily around salaries, where the state supplemented teacher salaries. It's around pre-K. It's around support for students who go to the highest poverty schools, and those areas. So all of those things will also, those are built into our budget, and that will be in question because the legislation that was passed last spring before the Maryland General Assembly went out of session put some parameters on that law around revenues and what was going to happen with the revenues that were available in the coming year. So I just say that as a kind of framing for the idea of the FY22 budget, where we sit now, where we may be sitting in January, February, and March, and then as we build a new budget, looking forward to next July 1, which is the first day of the fiscal year 22 budget.
Okay. That was a good way to get started. I'm going to go ahead and go to each board member. I'm going to ask that you try to limit yourself to no more than 3 minutes of sharing what your priorities are. And I'm going to start with Vice President Wolf.
And I won't take 2 or 3 minutes because I have mine in a list, very easy. I'm going to give you them in order of priority for me, and where we get consensus is fine. But I would really like to see us work on hiring more psychologists and counselors. That would be my top priority. The second one is expansion of pre-K programs, full day pre-K programs. The third one would be technology for teachers. I don't know. I know we started with special ed teachers this year, and I'd like to see us be able to expand to regular education teachers next year. And the last thing I'd like to see is expansion of the after-school programs, particularly at our focus schools. I'm not sure, and I just can't remember where we ended up with on the money we provided for during the last budget season for that, but I'd like to see if we're back in brick and mortar buildings, after-school programs at our focus schools. Thank you.
Sure. I'm going to take a point of privilege and jump in. I always leave myself for last, but I'm going to be quick too, because a lot of what Ms. Vice President Wolf said are things on my list as well. Definitely with expansion of pre-K, but I was a little bit more specific with the early childhood centers, just because we are limited in our space in some of our buildings. We just wanted to, if we can, go back and look at Watkinsville School, where we're going to put in an early child care center in our previous budget. And then I wanted to, the pandemic is really raising a lot of awareness around just our administrators needing to be where they need to be. I saw someone on Twitter having like 3 laptops up, trying to be in 3 different meetings at once. So I know in our previous budget, we were trying to convert 5 to 6 ASAs to APs, and I want to see us try to get that back on track. And then Dr. McKnight mentioned the Innovation Fund, and I was in that area as well, focusing on community schools. We talked about the equity hubs, and that seems to fall in place with the community schools as well. And then I was wanting to use the money too for the Equities Initiative Unit, thinking about the anti-racist audit and really trying to continue to hold up a robust training around cultural proficiency for everyone in that office as well. And then to tie in with Vice President Wolf around school psychologists, I was a little bit more broad, just talking about our Be Well 365 initiative and just really focusing on the physical, social, and psychological well-being of our students and our staff too. And so however that looks. And so with that, those were the priorities on my list. And I will now go to Mr. Asante and then Ms. Dixon.
All right, I wrote a list too, pretty short. The first was keeping up the technology advancements that I think we've made during this pandemic. I think finding a way to sustain a lot of the online learning tools that we've provided as we go forward. Also, increasing funding for mental health resources, whether that be psychologists or more training for counselors. I think that's really important. And then further developing our career programs and making those more accessible and increasing the amount that we have. And finally, tying this with the anti-racism audit, looking into updating our textbooks, making sure that where our textbooks are modern and do provide a more holistic view on the information being taught.
Sure. And just for clarification purposes for myself, I had on there the Children's Opportunity Fund, and not to take away from the anti-racist audit, because I had that in there as well. So however we would do all that. And so now we'll go to Ms. Dixon.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can?
Yeah.
Well, I have a message on my screen that says, Judith Daca requested to control your camera, accept or decline.
Okay, so decline, I want to say.
Do you know about this, Judy?
I don't believe she could do that, but I don't know where that message is coming from. But we can hear you.
You can hear me?
I've had trouble with this particular computer because no matter what you do up at the top, it shuts something off, and I've been very annoyed about it. So, okay.
We'll work with you. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Dixon.
Okay, so you can hear me. Okay. So, 3 things strike me. One, whenever there's a new principal at a school, an audit is done. And one of the things that I have felt that should occur, and especially now that we have a new chief financial officer, is that we should have an audit of the positions. And I'm thinking specifically of positions in the central office. I do think, and people won't like me saying this, that we are overstaffed there, that there could be some positions that could be combined. And I think given the what we're constantly being told is that, we're going to have some budget issues because of the pandemic and things like that. Although I'm not sure that we've seen any figures, but I do think it would be useful to, number one, do that. So the other things that I would prioritize are the reading for third graders, that no child comes out of third grade without being able to read on grade level or above and comprehend. I think that's a must. I think being able to read is really a human right, because if you can't read, everything else that we're doing in the system is moot. And the other thing that I would really like to see elevated is this anti-racist curriculum and audit that we are engaged in. I think that really does have to be a priority, especially, as we see what's been going on in our country. And it really is a matter of education, I think, and, educating all of those that need to have that. I'm struck by Dr. Smith. You mentioned, that you didn't have many advantages growing up, and being white was an advantage for you, but you also had something else, though, going forward, and that is that you did get an education. Yeah. And, that has made all the difference in the world because, thinking of, not necessarily having parents, although, because parents don't have an education or didn't go far in school doesn't mean that, they don't know anything or they're not wise. But, I think that is a big piece, and anything that we can do to educate is important. And then the other piece would be also the technology for teachers, because I think that having the right equipment at home, in order to deliver the instructional program is important. And going forward, I think that's going to be important, especially if you're going to, not have any snow days anymore. I think so. But you've seen the Twitter responses to that, have you, Dr. Smith?
So I also, my gender, at the time I was born, my gender, my race, and public education. Public education made all the difference in my life.
Right.
And that's why I believe in it so strongly.
Right. Me too. Same thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. We will now go to Mrs. O'Neill.
Thank you. I guess my thinking was, one, that we're coming out of the pandemic back to brick and mortar, and that we're facing tremendous budget challenges. I saw in the paper that Prince George's is talking about $127 million deficit. I don't know what our number will be, but I'm very concerned that we're going to be in a terrible situation. But I believe, for me, the number one priority has to be overcoming the learning loss from the pandemic, developing strategies, whether it's Saturday instruction, summer learning, after school opportunities. But all of that would be in my category, overcoming learning loss. Second would be protecting schools and classrooms, that if we have to take a scalpel to positions, somewhat akin to Mrs. Dixon's concerns, that we should first look at central office. But when I say protect classrooms, I don't want to see increased class sizes, reduction of paraeducators. Anything that's a direct support to students has to be the first priority for me. And finally, I believe coming out of the pandemic, our teachers just as they now need more planning time and more professional learning opportunities to better support our students as we restore learning within the buildings.
Thank you. We'll go to, you know what, and I'm having a brain freeze. I don't know if I said Mrs. Mondrowski before Mrs. O'Neill, but we'll go to Mrs. Mondrowski next.
Thank you. So a lot of what I've have on my list has already been said. There are so many things that are so important. Our mental health supports, the technology for teachers, the ASAs, APs. But the three things that I had on my list as the top priorities were, number one, professional development and planning time for our teachers. Maybe getting back to things like the skillful teaching programs and stuff like that. Recovery from learning loss. And I kind of made a note of that falling under the categories of after school programs and extra supports, and really looking at programs like Dreambox and things like that, where we know that we've seen a return on our investments and how we can expand those kind of things. And then the last one was the pre-kindergarten expansion and supports for K through 3 reading. So to really make sure that we're taking our kids at the youngest age and making sure that we're trying to close achievement gaps, utilizing these things that we know, like reading, as being one of the most important aspects of that.
Okay, thank you. And now we will go to Dr. Daca.
Okay. I want to thank Mr. Boddy and Dr. Sharon and Mr. Landsman for working with the 160 of their stakeholders and having the stakeholders say they needed to reach out to marginalized students. And I really appreciate that. And I think we really should be doing that. And my concern is the students that are at the secondary level. They could use learning hubs. And I think that was already mentioned, described as after school, longer days, Saturdays. But these students not only have to be invited, but they really need to be pushed to join, because a lot of the kids are not taking advantage of some of the programs that are out there. For instance, take George B. Thomas Learning Academy. There are a lot of places that students could be coming in to get help, and they're not, especially at the middle school and high school level. And this is their last chance before they are set out into the world. So we've got to do something. And I also am concerned about the curriculum. I know that we say we bought a multicultural curriculum that shows the history in the United States and all the contributions and the histories of different groups in this country. But since there is a movement at the Department of Education and in another place downtown in DC, where they want us to teach true history and not have kids taught history that makes them hate America, just when we're trying to let everybody know that we need to include everybody in our history. So I think we need to really stand firm on that. Anti-racist learning, I think it's very important, and I really think it ought to be included in our mandatory training. And I don't mean just saying, okay, you need to be anti-racist, but people really need to know what kinds of incidents are indicative of racist behaviors or biased behaviors. So I think we need to really be clear about that. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And now we will hear from Ms. Silvestre.
Thank you. In a recent meeting, you hear me talk about Strategic Planning Committee. It's really good. You should make sure you watch all those meetings. Dr. Wilson and Dr. Morris talked about the funding following the data. So I don't know what that, I don't have a recommendation for that. I hear things like third grade reading, second grade reading. And I think that's what we're going at. If we know we have deficiencies in a particular area, once we cover the basics of the budget, please make sure that the limited funding that we do have is going to those percentages that we know are deficient, those numbers, those faces. We also know that our students need rigor. All of our students need rigor from the early grades. So please, let's have rigor, but let's also support them so that they can be successful in those classes. And let's provide the professional development for our teachers so that they are equipped to teach all of our students in a differentiated manner. I think if we can, depending on what other county agencies are doing, I think we should strive to do salary increases. That might seem naive at this time, but I think we should try. And I think that's all I had. I don't have a long list, but I think I really that what Dr. Wilson said about the funding following the data really resonated with me, and that what Dr. Smith said it today about the percentages becoming actual individual students and doing interventions to help that individual student improve. Thank you.
Thank you. It's 3:27. We might actually get done at 3:30. I'm so excited. But I have a clarifying question. I didn't put technology for teachers on my priorities because I thought that as a result of the committee that was formed and what we were hearing from teachers around the technology that was not working for them, that we were working to get technology for them. It just was going to take a minute because of the backup. So can you just clarify that for me?
We're going to do our best to get that done this year.
Okay.
But we will need to build in money so that we can sustain that going forward. You know, when you look at the budget, the only thing that would stop that, and I want everyone to really remember this, is if our budget is in any way impacted negatively in January, February, March, but at the county level or the state level. But we are continuing to order and build out that technology for our students and our adults.
Okay. I just wanted to, for my own knowledge. So thank you. And so thank you all to my colleagues for being so succinct and staying under 2 to 3 minutes. That is so hard for us sometimes because it's just all good stuff that we want to talk about. But if there is not anything else that anyone wanted to add, Dr. Smith, Dr. McKnight, to any of my colleagues, then this will conclude this work session today.
This was a very helpful discussion. Thank you.
I think so as well. And so have a good rest of your day, and we will see you all very soon. Thank you all for joining us. Bye.